Thank you, Evan. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. Madam Mayor, thank you for your comments. As she's aware, I think, I had the opportunity to serve as mayor in Newton last year. We rotate the job. We're not elected to the mayorship. And I say about that process that the worst thing about it is that you really can't accomplish anything in a year. The best thing about it is you're only mayor for a year. And then the target gets much smaller, so there's this advantage to that. I come from a railroad town. Some of you may as well. But Newton's identity, if you know Newton at all, is still very much wedded into railroad history in a pretty significant way. Newton was really created in the around 1870 or so by two forces, cattle and the railroad. The story is that Abilene the city fathers were getting pretty tired of being the rough and tumble cowboy town, and they were petitioning to not do that anymore. Santa Fe moved their western terminus to Newton, and Newton suddenly, by 1871, was known as Bloody Newton over the course of 2 or 3 years before the terminus continued to move further south and west. But even today, you can see evidence of the old Chisholm Trail in parts of our community where hundreds of thousands of head of cattle were driven through Newton and north to Abilene. Later, so the Santa Fe Railroad, and to some degree also the Missouri Pacific, became part of Newton's DNA in a significant way. We were created by the federal land grant system. If you look at the original plat for Newton, Kansas, the layout of neighborhoods and streets and so forth, at the bottom of it indicates that this was actually designed by the Santa Fe Railroad Engineering Department in Topeka, Kansas. They built the town. Later in the Santa Fe's history, as many of you know, Newton became a junction point for the Santa Fe's southern route through Amarillo, and so suddenly became a hub in those days for passenger rail, east to west and north to south. By the 1940s, there were some 30-plus passenger trains through Newton in a day. Many carrying passengers who were connecting to points either going west, east, or south. And that continued really until the late 1950s. Our city hall in Newton is the old division headquarters, middle division headquarters for the Santa Fe Railroad. And if you drive in Newton today, because we sit on the BNSF Transcon line, if you drive through Newton today, you're almost assured about every 20 minutes of having an opportunity to pause and to check your cell phone, to look around at the beautiful surroundings that surround you in Newton, Kansas, and just contemplate life. We refer to it there as the Great Newton Pastime, and it happens about every 20 minutes. And this gets personal for me too, because I was telling some folks at our table earlier this morning that I grew up as a railroad brat. There was a time in the early 1960s when you could go into the train station in Newton, buy a ticket on the westbound Super Chief from my dad, who was a clerk. On board, the conductor punching the ticket was his father, my grandfather. And my other grandfather was the engineer with his hand on the throttle. So railroading has been a family enterprise for my family. Newton today is no longer a company town. We're very diversified. We have a variety of industry, commercial enterprises, even though the BNSF is somewhat of a presence in our community. And we're part of, those of you who are familiar with South Central Kansas know we're part of a greater Wichita partnership. We're part of the metropolitan area of Wichita, even though we are a distinctive small community within that metropolitan area. We have lots of folks who travel from our town to Wichita every day to work, and likewise we have a lot of people from Sedgwick County who are traveling to Newton and Hardy County for their employment as well. So we're very tied together now with Wichita and with many of the smaller communities that surround Wichita. But the railroad is still part of our DNA. One of the things that has changed in light of this regionalism is that we work very closely together with these other communities on economic development. When I was mayor last year, I spent quite a bit of time sitting down with Mayor Longwell from Wichita, and we would chat together about opportunities in Wichita, opportunities in Newton. There's an attitude there that what is good for one is good for everyone, and we pursue that pretty strongly now throughout the greater Wichita partnership. We also have worked, and many of you are aware of this, we've worked together with many of the communities represented here on ongoing preservation and support of the Southwest Chief. And this has been a strong partnership in Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico, as we have worked together with other communities to pursue tiger grants. We've been very successful, as you know, doing that. And each one of these small communities, including Newton, has been putting its own resources into that process as well as just about every other community that is served by the Southwest Chief. I've also worked fairly closely with Wichita City Councilman Pete Meitzner. He was sorry he could not be here today. He has another commitment. And others, as Evan mentioned, on the extension of the Heartland Flyer. I'll say more about that in just a moment. But freight and passenger rail factors into the ongoing economic development work in Newton and our region. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that. Several years ago, Newton created, I'd call it a industrial park on steroids. It's a Kansas logistics park. It sits just to the east of our town. It's poised to be a place for major industry to set up shop and to be productive in our community. And one of the things that really distinguishes this particular logistics park is its access to transportation, particularly to rail. It's served by an interstate highway, but it's also served by the BNSF Transcon line that runs nearby, as well as the Kansas and Oklahoma Railroad, the Watco Railroad that runs north to south and south to the Port of Catoosa. So this is actually such a strong location for transportation. BNSF has listed it among its 16 BNSF certified sites in the United States. And it's just going to be a matter of time before we start to see some real industrial activity take off there. The other story I would tell just briefly is that as we have been contemplating the prospect of becoming once again a passenger rail hub with the prospect of the Heartland Flyer terminating in Newton to the north. The City Commission in Newton and our city staff have been working at ways in which we can improve the customer experience, the travel experience for those passengers who need to disembark and make a connection. We've talked about improvements to our platform area. We've already made a number of improvements to the train station. We've also even some other things that might be put into place for this, what many people consider a middle-of-the-night connection point in Newton. The Heartland Flyer. I think probably most of you here are aware of this. Many of you, I know, I see faces of folks who are very engaged in this process. Pete and I have worked closely together on this because, first of all, that would be a great asset for Wichita, Kansas. Wichita is one of very few mid-major cities in the United States not served by Amtrak, and they would like that service back. It's probably, in our region, almost more critical for Wichita to have that service than it is for Newton to be the point of connection with the Southwest Chief. The other argument I have made beyond the importance of this to Wichita and communities in the southern part of Kansas, south of Wichita, and Oklahoma, is that it really changes the dynamic of the quality of the service for those communities serviced by the Southwest Chief in small communities along that line. Right now, the Southwest Chief is a connection point for, as you know, for Chicago and Los Angeles and points in between. But imagine being a traveler from Dodge City, Kansas, suddenly also having a connection point to Fort Worth and Austin and San Antonio. It ups the game. And I think all of the Southwest Chief communities, and I've tried to advocate this with those communities, that they all should be behind the effort to expand the Heartland